Why comedy?
Why did I end up doing comedy?
Yeah.
I think it's just the thing that I like the most. Do you know what? I think when you go and see comedy of any kind, like stand-up comedy, or even like a sort of radio recording of comedy, or anything like that, you know if it's worked. You know if people find it funny because they let you know. You can't really argue with it. That you may not be to your taste, but you know if people find it funny. I think with drama, you just the audience's reaction to a drama that's incredibly engrossing and incredibly boring will be the same during the show. They'll just sit there in silence during the show. They might react differently at the end. And I think I was just always drawn to something where it feels like you really can learn the rules of this, and you can learn how to get good at it, and you can learn how to kind of perfect what you're doing. And I think with drama, it always felt a bit more like there's a subjectivity to it that I think it just makes it a bit harder a bit more mysterious. I mean, look, I that said, I feel like people who can write comedy can write anything, and people who can perform comedy can perform anything, and people who can write and perform drama can only do that. I feel like comedy is by far the hardest thing to write and perform.
And underappreciated as well, I think.
Well, I mean, you see this all the time, that like comedies never win best film at the Oscars, or the best play for the Olivier's, whatever it may be. And it's, invariably some gritty drama that will win these things, and the actors in these gritty dramas that will win lots of awards. And, for me, I feel like the most talented actors I've worked with by a stretch are ones who can do comedy.
Yeah, I think so. I think even as an actor myself, in class and in various scenes, I mean, like, I hope I can be funny in life. Well, we all do. But it's very different than being funny in a scene that was written by someone else. And I know that I found myself struggling with some scenes in class, even when there is a joke or some funny scene that I watch other people perform, and they do it in a very different way, and they're very funny, and I just can't. So I agree with you on that. Yes,
but,
for sure.
Comedy is so much about language. It's so much about your relationship with language that I think it's incredibly difficult to be funny in another language. I think it's really hard. It's like the thing that takes the longest to learn, right? When you're approaching a new language, is how to be funny or nuanced or subtle.
Yeah, I think so. Well, when I master it, I'll let you know. What do you find funny? Because I'm asking that because basically your humor, at least what I've seen, and here we go, what I've seen in Plebs, I think it's clean. It's very, very clean. Is it because it's, main channels and BBC or whatever, and you can't pass some rating, or you value clean comedy more than something that, I don't know, like someone like Jim Jeffries, or even Ricky Gervais sometimes can be, but he's more provocative rather than, he's not dirty.
Yeah, I think I guess I've never liked comedy that's kind of cruel. I've never liked stuff that is, that's kind of a form of bullying. Because you do get comedy and comedians that do stuff that's kind of bullying. And even when it's like, bullying groups of people that it's acceptable to bully. So not picking on like groups of people that the audience are going to be upset that they're being picked on, but picking on groups of people that the audience is like, yeah, stick it to them. I've just never really enjoyed that kind of form of comedy. It always felt quite easy to me, and just sort of boring. I think my tastes have changed over the years. When I was growing up, like particularly with stand-up, I would really love people like Harry Hill, Dimitri Martin, people that are doing very whimsical, slightly surreal, very verbal jokes, very kind of like intricate sometimes, like conceptual jokes. I used to love that kind of stuff, and I think as I've got older, I've kind of got more into insightful stuff, like kind of I guess more emotional comedy stuff, things that feel like they're rooted in reality, particularly like funny characters. You know, when you're watching a sitcom and you start to find a character funny, it's just completely joyous, because then you look forward to coming back to it. You look forward to seeing more of it and just seeing that character again, because, you know, it's such a rare and wonderful thing for a character to kind of connect with an audience, and an audience kind of feel like they know someone. So that's the kind of thing that now I feel like I appreciate the most in comedy, is like really, really good characterful writing and characterful performances.
How do you write a character like that, but avoid for that character with time to become a caricature of themselves, if you know what I mean? Because for me, like, the good example of that would be if we take Two Half Men. Character of Alan, he gets in, and kind of you have some sympathy for him, but like with each season, the more we go into the character, he becomes absolutely unlikable, and he just becomes a caricature of the character that he was playing in the beginning. How do you write a funny character without crossing that line?
Yeah, I mean, in truth, I think you just have to, like, you know, just be quite hard on yourself when you're writing it, and not take any kind of soft options with the writing. I mean, you know, it just requires a sort of consistency. But there's always a temptation to make the character do stuff they wouldn't do. If the audience is watching something and they go, well, he wouldn't do that, or she wouldn't say that, then, like, you've lost them. You've completely lost them. You've got to keep it feeling like it's truthful. It's based on something that we know about that character, or something that we've seen already about that character, or even that we've seen in the world itself. You know, that the other thing to say is that, you know, particularly with a sitcom like Two and a Half Men, because it's a studio sitcom, right? So they're shooting it in front of a live audience. There's always a temptation with shows like that to kind of clown or sort of gurn, to go for laughs in the room with the studio audience, and you'll get them. You will, you know, the more you yuck it up in a studio sitcom, the more laughs you will get on the day, but probably the worse it will come across to the audience at home watching on TV. And it takes real discipline from those actors to not do something that's just too kind of monstrous and sort of inhuman. Like, you know, if people start doing stupid voices and kind of, like, you know, pulling faces, it might be that the studio audience at the time think it's great, but the audience at home really don't. They think it's really rubbish. And, like, the disconnect between those two things makes viewers at home hate it even more.
Yeah.
Like, if the studio audience are laughing loads at someone basically just kind of pulling faces, then you can probably bet that the audience who are watching it on TV hate it even more. So there's like, you know, it's just about making sort of the right decisions, isn't it? When you're writing, when you're performing. I go back to, like, silent comedy quite a lot, partly because I've been watching it a lot with my kids in recent years, and so it's just sort of in my head. But the restraint, the most amazing thing about the likes of Chaplin and Buster Keaton and, you know, Harold Lloyd, these people, Lauren Hardy, is just the enormous restraint in their performances, and that they have that because they've spent decades performing in front of audiences on stage, because they know exactly how audiences appreciate stuff, like what a realistic like presentation of a person can do to an audience, and what it should and shouldn't look like. So there's just such detail and such kind of, yeah, just like really thoughtful restraint in what they're doing. You know, someone like Buster Keaton, basically, he trusts that people understand what he's thinking and what he's feeling without having to constantly tell them with his face. And it's just so brilliant. And, you know, I don't think some comic actors and studio sitcoms are always doing that without naming names.
What would be your most inspirational sitcoms?
In terms of inspirational, the ones that meant the most to me when I was growing up would be things like One Foot in the Grave and The Simpsons. The Simpsons is just it's incredible the way that they get through story, the way that like after 5 minutes you just can't believe how far the story's gone, like how quick it is to get into these kind of really funny situations. The writing is just amazing, particularly in that period when I guess I was about 16. So yeah, kind of mid to late 90s. Just the writing in those early Simpsons series was just insane. In recent years, my favorite sitcoms, things like South Park, I still adore and just think they're just the cleverest comedy writers going. I love It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think they're really, really funny, those guys. I love The Office. I haven't really watched much of the US Office, but the UK Office was just hugely influential for me.